The clay that we're using today will be the large clay that was in the kit that you received at the back door last week when I was handing out some clay. If you haven't had an opportunity to stop in and get your clay yet, please ensure that you do, because it makes the course a whole lot more fun when you can work on projects at home. Your slab of clay will look much like this, and it'll be suitable for creating your slab. Remember the technique where you bring your arm across the front of your body to allow the clay to hit, stick, and stretch, like this. I'm going to repeat this without the thumping on the video. Now, with 4 or 5 good swings, I have a slab that is close to uniform but not perfect. And let me make this point too. The tiles that you have seen so far have straight edges and they're geometric and square or rectangular. I think because we're working at home, that really is not necessary. If you want some kind of organic shape, some kind of amorphous shape, something like this, you can do that too. I don't see any reason why you have to make something that is strictly geometric in shape. Next, we'll take some of these wooden slats and place them 2 slats high on either side of the tile. And then I will roll out my slab. There's the big roller. You can use a smaller one too. Almost immediately, I see that I only need 1 slab. So by repeating this action across the tile, I'm going to roll a slab. These 2 slabs have been rolled out to about 1 centimeter thick. It's a geometric shape. Again, yours does not have to be, but this is about the most reasonable thickness that you want to achieve. In some cases, you might want to build short walls to divide your space, separate sections so that they're discrete and separate from each other, or you may want those textures to bleed into one another, overlap, and become much more organic. Here's another example of mostly negative relief, but there is some positive relief there. This is a really nice tile as well. Carefully drawn, planned well, and executed with patience and skill. Remember those stamps from the stamp gallery video? I have them with me here, and to make a point about how attractive they can be, I'm just going to press a couple of them into the clay. Maybe you can see that. I hope you can. This was one that I was impressed with before. You can see that these stamps work really well in the soft clay. Your stamps need to be fired. So if you do use your stamps before they're fired, just be really careful, because they're in a fragile state. They haven't been into the kiln, they haven't been made permanent yet, and they could crumble. You see, there's a lot that you can do with these kinds of ceramic stamps. What do you do in the situation that you're in where you don't have access to stamps that have been fired? Well, fortunately, you're at home, and your home is filled with great things that you can stamp with. I strongly encourage you to look around in your garage, in your kitchen, look into drawers and places where junk accumulates, because all kinds of ordinary objects make great marks in clay. Here's a piece off of a roll of paper. It's the end roll off of, I think it's a pair of paper towels. This is a little plastic cork, but I really like the texture that's here, and you might be able to see how this in itself becomes something like a stamp. It can be rolled and it can create those borders. I don't know if you can see what this is, but it's actually a spring and an egg cup. It makes its own mark in clay. That is interesting. Interesting enough. That's not my favorite. This is a crazy one. We have a bunch of these rollers in the classroom. You'll see them eventually. But they put an entire waffle grid over top of your tile as well. Little wooden baubles like that. Here's a little piece of plastic that comes in consumer products and things that you wouldn't necessarily consider as art materials. When you look at them as a sculptor, make great examples. Again, return to the natural world if you want to, this little puffball from a previous lesson too. I like that. Okay, I've rolled this slab over and flattened it out again so we have a clean work surface. Allow me to make this point. If you do want a square tile, a rectangular tile, all you have to do is treat your clay as if it were a piece of paper. You can use a straight edge of any kind. You can actually use these wooden slats or something similar. You can use a ruler, or this is a set square from school. If you want that straight look, then all you have to do is place it and choose your tool of cutting. Now, I know you don't have clay knives at home. This is from my kitchen drawer, and I'm just putting the knife in a little bit of water to make it easier to cut through the clay. So if you want straight edges like this, place the ruler, the straight edge, wherever you would like it to be. And then cut to that line. This clay is the clay that you can use to build positive relief. If you would like to build short walls to divide space on your tile, then I recommend rolling coils out with your hands. In this example, I am going to build short walls to show you how to do that. But before I do that, I was really attracted to the marks that this little puffball made when I rolled it around on the clay. So I'm going to give myself a textured area up here in the corner that is just randomly generated. I'm just going to roll this around, and this will be the base up to the edge of the wall that I'm going to apply. I really like this. So I'll roll this around. I might roll this around in another area before I start. Well, that seems to work out really nicely. I'm going to attach these rolls of clay to the actual tile itself. Before I do that, I want you to remember about scoring and slipping. And there are a number of ways that you can score. You can go back to the knife that you used to cut the clay in the first place. And remember, you're going to expose the surface of the clay with a bunch of small cuts or slashes so that the clay that you're adding has more edge to bite onto. I will do this with these as well, just cutting lightly, putting marks into the clay to create more surface. Now, before I begin to join the walls on, I'm going to identify part of my tile where I'm going to add immediately a textured area. I think I'm going to put a bunch of pebbles in here, so I'm going to score this area, and I'll show you how you can build that area up just through texture, and it should be quite attractive. Okay, remember our clay slip is watered down clay, and I'm going to brush this on here like this. If it's dry at all, I can add a bit more water, but I want a wet surface to join onto. This technique, it's very easy to do, and I find it very effective in building areas of texture. I'm just taking little pebbles or peas of clay and pushing them into an area that has been scored and slipped and ready to receive these little bits of clay. You can build these up any way you like. You can press back into them. You can create quite a rich surface. These look good when they're fired as well. Next, I'm going to dip into my slip and use my finger or my brush. You might not have a brush, I realize, so here's my finger. I'm going to add some clay, just using my finger, some clay slip on here. And then I'm going to take the clay that I cut and scored and press it in this way. This is the boundary, the edge of one of my walls, my short walls, okay? I'll do the same over here. And of course, when you do yours, you'll take time to blend it in, smooth it down the way you want. But it's this easy, just a little bit of light pressure on top, and you can create those divisions if you have a preference for strongly divided areas. This line comes in here, score and slip this piece, and I can join this piece on here. Okay, so I've placed those pieces in. I have my little pebbles up here. I've used those long sinuous lines of clay to create some division. I cut some strips that I thought I might turn into a bit of a weave pattern, and I've repeated those strips down in this area. The idea here is that if I repeat that texture, my eye is going to be drawn down to that location. So pattern can be achieved, movement can be achieved. Some of the elements of design are very easily achieved simply by repeating textures or design. You can always go back to your stamps. Let's try this feather. Remember, the feather was a nice stamp. You can use this as well. You can add texture to the rails, those short walls that you created. The key here, I think, to a successful tile is to add texture upon texture upon texture and get them really, really rich. The varied surfaces look great after they've been fired, and you can bring an even stronger effect to them with color and shade or shadow. We'll talk about that in future videos. I hope this is enough to get you started. Remember to clean up your workspace with water and soap. Wrap the clay that you didn't use the same way you would wrap your tile in damp paper towels and well sprayed damp cloth if that's all you have. You have some cling wrap in your bag that your clay came in. This makes an excellent seal over work that is ongoing. When your work is finished, lift it off of the tile, off of your board, and slide it back into that carefully planned ahead Ziploc bag that I gave to you. In most cases, your tile will fit in there really nicely, and that will be how you transport it eventually back to school. Speaking of back to school, I have to go. I told the principal I was going to the washroom. Huh. Okay, see you there. Come by and pick up your clay if need be. If not, you're ready to begin your tile. Have fun.